Australia, and it's supposed to be a very high Muslim population area. As soon as we arrived in Lakemba, things were tense. There were heads turning, people coming out of shops to look at us and find out what we were doing. Men started yelling in Arabic across the street at us. As we went to go for a walk to the local mosque, a very high-ranked police officer came up to me and begged with me, do not go there.
Is it?
Speaking.
Inspector Rick Ages from Campsie Police.
Yep.
I've been informed that you're intending to attending the Lakemba Mosque. Is that correct?
I actually have no intentions of attending. I was just planning on walking through the streets and seeing how the culture was here.
Yes?
Yep.
Are you satisfied with that?
Yep.
So where do you intend on walking to now?
I was just going to walk out and check how the mosque was.
Check where the mosque was?
Yep. Would I not be allowed to attend if I wanted to?
I've got grave concerns that you may cause an imminent breach of the peace down there. So I'm asking you not to attend.
Why would I cause a breach of the peace?
Because it's highly religious down there.
So would it be me causing a breach of the peace, or would it be the people there?
Well, your presence may cause them to be, be offensive and be objective to your attending there.
And so that would be them being offended by me.
Can you not interview me?
No, you fear people will be offended by me.
No, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And you're committing a breach of the peace. I've given you that warning. And if you do that, you may be breaking the law. Do you understand that?
Yep, I understand it. I perfectly understand. As far as I'm concerned, you have Sharia law here. As far as I'm concerned. Yeah, we'll go to jail if we talk to people. As far as I'm concerned, they have Sharia law here. I was told if I talk to people, even if I put all my cameras away, I can't criticize Islam to people here on a public street in Australia, in Sydney. Don't tell me you don't have no-go zones. Don't tell me this is a multicultural country. Lakemba is a monoculture, and it is one that does not allow critique of Islam. It is one that does not allow free speech because it is conquered land.
So if you don't have the same laws for everybody, do you have a system of justice? Do you have a country? The mainstream media doesn't want you to believe that there are no-go zones, as evidenced here in this Google search from The Guardian. How no-go zone myth spread from fringes to mainstream UK politics. But we know that they have no-go zones. Let's just punch it in here. No-go zones, France. Or maybe no-go zones, Europe. Oh, no-go zones, Europe map. There's a map. Should we take a look? Boy, for being a myth, it sure does seem like there's plenty of no-go zones. But from the Bridge Initiative website, fact sheet, no-go zone, conspiracy theory. The quote, no-go zone is an anti-Muslim conspiracy theory claiming there are areas in Europe and the US with dense Muslim populations that are governed by Sharia law and where police and non-residents are barred from entry. Now, this reminds me of a story I heard recently about Sharia law courts that they want to put in the UK. The Google AI overview says the UK is home to many Sharia courts, also known as Sharia councils, which issue rulings on family matters such as marriage and divorce. There are an estimated 80 to 85 Sharia courts in the UK to go hand in hand with the no-go zones, where you're meant to cede to the Muslim invaders. Is that too dramatic? They're already waging what would you call it, a peaceful jihad, which I find ironic that I'm opening the show with this wearing my very Islam adjacent hat that I've donned because I need a haircut. is the truth of the matter. And I've been sick since Christmas and just feeling a little bit better today, and also feeling very motivated, despite the recent events that have led to me being here by myself again, going solo. I don't know how much I want to talk about it, to be honest, because I mean, the show has a following now, even though the size of the following may have contributed to the departure of my co-host. I don't know what his reasonings for leaving the show were, because he didn't say anything to me. He gave no indication, and I'll just say, for now, he is alive. He's posted on social media. He's not in prison. He didn't die of a vaccine-related coronary event, which was, of course, the many things that popped into my head. Unfortunately, I had a sneaking suspicion that it was going to go this way. Don't ask me to explain it. I'm just going to stop right there because I know I'm going to end up getting into things that are going to make me upset, make me come off unprofessional. I'm sure he had his reasons. I'm sure he thought that they were very good reasons. Although there really is, in my opinion, no excuse to just bailing without saying anything. Justify that one for me. Be happy to gather your feedback on the issue. You can send an email to the real earthvox at protonmail.com. I'm at earthvox on X and the earthvox podcast. Anywhere else you'd like to find me. Continuing with the no-go zone story, which isn't new. I mean, this article is from October 11th, 2016. But the issue, the reason it is important to me is because these no-go zones are starting to appear in the United States. But this article from the National Post, Europe's no-go zones inside the lawless ghettos that breed and harbor terrorists. I'll make it a little larger here for you before we continue. You can find the stream on X, Twitch, and YouTube streaming simultaneously. It's a lot for me to keep up with on my own, so if you're chatting, I apologize for being unresponsive while the stream is going on. Last month, French police thwarted an attempted terrorist attack at Paris Notre Dame Cathedral. Luckily, the cell of radicalized French women who were taking orders from Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIL, remember that? ISIL commanders in Syria did not get away with it, but it seems that more often than not, they do. How is this possible? On July 14th, when the people of France were celebrating the anniversary of the liberation of the Bastille prison by secular Republican revolutionaries in 1789, an apparent lone wolf terrorist drove a truck into a holiday crowd in Nice. Does that sound familiar? Was there just something similar that happened at a Christmas parade on just last week or a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, almost as if this is a pattern. It's a preferred method of engagement with Islam's enemies. Let me share this screen for you real quick. Much more recent than when was this? November 2016? October. We'll stop that. Share this. One of the things we didn't get to from last week because of instabilities beyond my control, we'll call them. From the Telegraph, 2 killed, almost 70 injured in German Christmas market terror attack. A car plowed into a crowd at a German Christmas market on Friday, killing at least 2 people. Again, this article from December 21st, 2024. The dark-colored BMW crashed through barriers protecting the market in Magdeburg and drove straight into shoppers at 7:04 p.m. local time. The video, purportedly taken by a nearby camera, which I will not show you, showed a car mowing down pedestrians as it sped through a narrow alleyway with stalls on either side. People could be seen fleeing in panic as some attended to bodies left strewn on the ground. Yeah, pretty horrific. Pretty horrific video. And we'll go back to the article from 2016. On July 14th, when the people of France were celebrating the anniversary of the liberation of Bastille Prison, we read that already, media coverage of the incident followed a now familiar pattern. At first, it was reported that Mohamed Lahouaj Boulel, a Tunisian citizen living in France, had carried out the attack on his own. Initial investigations suggested that he was not religious or interested in Islam, ate pork, drank alcohol, was sexually active, and perhaps had mental problems. And of course, the internet was filled with claims by ISIL that it had masterminded the attack. French authorities soon discovered that Boulel had been planning this for a long time, that he had been visiting jihadist websites, and that he had at least 7 accomplices, 5 fellow Tunisians and 2 Albanian Muslims who were all well armed. Hours after the massacre, one of his accomplices visited the site to film the reaction of people in and around it. What is worse is that the evidence strongly suggests that they were planning a second bomb attack a few weeks later, during the height of the French holiday season in August. What's my point? I think we should look, maybe we should look at the other article. The more recent article. Because I think you'll find the similarities in these two stories, almost 10 years, 8 years apart now, to be perplexing. Because he's also described in the same fashion. That he was very westernized and anglicized and didn't seem to be a violent jihadist, even though the incident is being treated as a terror attack. One of the updates. Michael Rafe, a spokesperson for the city, has confirmed the incident was being treated as a terror attack rather than an accident. Quote, "The pictures are terrible," Mr. Rafe said. "My information is that a car drove into the Christmas market visitors, but I can't say yet from what direction and how far." A few people dead, several people horrifically injured. And because of the poor leadership, in my opinion, so many of our issues can be traced back to poor leadership. I mean, just listen to the policeman, the Australian policeman, telling this woman that she's basically not allowed to go into this heavily Muslim Sharia law area. Because why? Because it's going to make his job more difficult, because he'll have to do some paperwork. I mean, make it make sense. Explain it. What reason could a policeman possibly have for telling his citizens, the people that are under his care, under his protection, that they're not allowed to go into parts of the city that they pay for with their tax dollars? They're not allowed to go in there because many violent Muslim men have moved into the area and will be violent against people that live there. Imagine the outrage if these kind of videos, like the one I just played for you, were spread far and wide, were amplified by the mainstream media that so many people still trust and hold in high regard. What would that do to this peaceful Muslim movement that is sweeping the planet? I really don't agree or condone with generalizing the behaviors of a culture, of an entire religion, of an entire race of people, because it's ignorant. But I think the Western world has been studying for a long time the behavior of Islam in the developed world. There are statistics from Western cities in Ireland and Scotland and the UK that show Muhammad as being the #1 male baby name. And let me see what I can find here. I'll share it with you so you can follow along with me in my Google search. Because it's profound and alarming. And why? Why is it profound and alarming? Muhammad baby name. Show me something. From The Guardian, December 6th. Muhammad is England's most popular boy's baby name for first time. Why is that a concern? Is Islam the most tolerant religion? Is Islam the religion of a free people? Let's see if we can find some interesting pictures. Because you can see in pictures of Iran from the 70s. Here we go. Where people look mostly normal. Women. I'm talking about women. We'll look at this Reddit post. Oh my God. Iranian women showing leg. They've got knee-length skirts. The horror. They should be drug into the streets, tied up and stoned. And not the good kind of stoned. And now the women in Iran have to wear hijabs, where they're not allowed to show their faces. And look at, this is gross, man. And I don't care what you have to say about me and my tolerance of Islam. Feel free. Spew all your hatred in the comments. You don't fool me. Oh, look, Lululemon. How good of Lululemon to create a hijab for Islamic women. Something you can wear around the house, because when you go out in public, you don't get to show your face. You got to wear something like this. You can show your eyes. You look like a wizard ninja. But somehow the left in this country is fully in favor of this, accidentally. Surprisingly. Why would they be in favor of something like this? Because it's to facilitate the destruction of capitalist America. And I don't get me wrong. I've got a lot of apologies to make about capitalism in America. In fact, I feel like the state of capitalism in America is responsible for the rise of communism in America, for the rise of Islamism in America. Because we don't have fairness. And I know the world's not fair. Well, guess what? I feel like it's our responsibility as the leaders of the free world, the Americans, to work to make things fair for the people that live in the United States. Because there is far too much injustice, far too much greed, for us to just sit idly by and go, what's on TV? What's going on with Netflix? What's going on with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson? What's happening with football and the Super Bowl and all of these other things that will distract us from the tragedies that are taking place in our own country? The Muslims have a plan. They're moving in. They're coming over. They're crossing the English Channel. They're getting in. They're taking government benefits. They're establishing themselves, and they're having 8 kids. Now, explain the cultural narrative in the context of peaceful Islamic jihad. How do you resist when all they do is come over and have 8 kids? To your 2 kids, to my 2 kids, to Matt's 2 kids, to Jake's 2 kids. 4 families to balance out one Islamic family. Now, is this a problem? You tell me. Are you worried about this? Are you comfortable handing over control of your country to the tenets of Islam? Is that a free society? I just showed you pictures. Women, is it a free society where you can only show your eyes when you go out in public? You can't go out on your own. You can't drive a car. You can't learn to read, write. You can't go to school. Well, these are all myths. Oh, are they? Who do you believe? Should we talk about Qatari influence in the media? I'll pull it up. Is Qatar an Islamic state? Sure is. Let's Google search just to make sure. Is Qatar an Islamic state? I'll share this screen with you just to, keep up my practice. Yes, Qatar is an Islamic state. Now, bear with me. Let's go Qatari influence in media. Oh, Al Jazeera. Maybe you've heard of them. Al Jazeera Media Network. The network's inception aimed at providing a Qatari perspective directly into Arab homes, bypassing regional governments. Do we need to find out who owns Al Jazeera? Spoiler alert, it's Qatar. Yeah. And it doesn't end there. The influence extends into multiple aspects of our media and is even partnered up with social media platforms like X. And this is why they say no-go zones are a myth. Just to prove it to you, I'm punching it in. No-go zones, myth. We've seen it once, we'll see it again. No-go zone myth. Thanks, Guardian. The myth of no-go zones from thegeopolitics.com. The myth of the no-go zone from Tribune Mag. No-go zones, the myth that just won't quit. From the Southern Poverty Law Center in the United States. Back in 2015. I wonder if it's still a myth now. From the article, a regular critic of Islam, Fox News pundit and self-styled terrorism expert Steve Emerson apologized under pressure in January for his assertion following the jihadist massacre at France's Charlie Hebdo magazine that certain parts of Europe are, quote, no-go zones where, quote, non-Muslims just simply don't go, end quote. Emerson, who told CBS viewers in 1995 not to believe Islamic groups' denials of responsibility for the Oklahoma City bombing before it was known that it was the work of white anti-government extremists, made the comment during a January 10th. Hold on, are white Westerners immune to the influence of Islam? White people don't take bribes. Westerners aren't radicalized by Islam. Let me ask this. Is Islam fair? Is the Muslim way of life fair? Answer it yourself. Don't make me quantify what fair is. It's different for me. It's different for you. It's different for Muslims. If you're a peaceful follower of Islam, I salute you. I believe you're the minority. In fact, the Quran says that you're the minority. Because Islam wants to take over the world. Did the Crusades ever end? Or did it just go underground? Did World War II ever end, or did it just go underground? Did the Cold War ever end? Or did they just tell us on the news that it did? And are we going to see any escalation before January 20th? Inauguration Day. I'm not so sure. I know I've been very skeptical on the transfer of power. And there have been many discussions about ways to block Donald Trump from entering the White House. Briefly, let's look at this summarized article. I'll just throw out a little plug to vtnews.ai, which I believe is a product of Valuetainment, a Patrick Bet David product. Headline, debate erupts over Trump's eligibility for presidency. You can check out this link in the show notes because it links to many other articles in a kind of a similar format to things like Ground News and other news aggregators that show you can see here on the screen if you're watching the video on X, YouTube, or Twitch, that this is mostly being covered by the right and center. And left outlets are only covering it 20% to 40% from the center and 40% from the right. The news summary. Recent opinion pieces in The Hill have ignited controversy over whether Congress can block President-elect Donald Trump from taking office based on interpretations of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which disqualifies individuals who have engaged in insurrection. Advocates argue that Trump's actions surrounding the January 6th Capitol riots meet this threshold, suggesting Congress should act swiftly to disqualify him before his inauguration. Critics, including constitutional scholars, label these efforts as anti-democratic and emphasize the high evidentiary bar required for such actions. Opponents of the proposal claim it undermines the democratic process as Trump won both the Electoral College and popular vote. The debate has gained traction on social media with reactions split along party lines reflecting deep divisions in public sentiment regarding Trump's presidency. The situation is unprecedented in American history, raising questions about the limits of congressional power and the implications of such actions for democracy. Let's talk about it. What are some possible what just give me one good reason. Anybody. Leave it in the comments below or send me an email, therealearthvox@protonmail.com. Name one good reason for taking the voice of the people away from them. For telling the 75 million, 78 million, 76 million people that voted for Donald Trump and handing the power of the country over to the people that lost the election. Give me one good reason. One good reason that isn't the end of America, the civil war that devastates the country and invites Russia and China to carve the country up among themselves. How could these people, like Jamie Raskin, justify this in a benevolent way that is based on the truth? No one that was ever locked up for January 6th was charged with insurrection. was convicted for insurrection. Insurrection wasn't even part of the conversation. But these lying politicians will use their media sycophants to create this narrative sponsored by foreign interests and corporate interests that are terrified of Donald Trump. And will use this to turn the public against Donald Trump and create this fantasy based on nothing to try to seize power for themselves. In what world is that beneficial to the country? Can we please, I've talked about this before. Can we please have politicians that are clearly operating in the best interests of the United States? Look at what Joe Biden is doing. Look at what Joe Biden has done for the last 4 years. Or what we're being claimed, or what we're being told are the decisions of Joe Biden, the 46th president of the United States. Gosh, I got the branching path before me now. Do we talk about Joe Biden and his pardons? Or do we talk about the fact that Joe Biden has basically been a president in name only? Because I have articles on both. I'll just say this about the pardons. Joe Biden. Yeah, let's go through the pardons. Because we've been talking about the differences between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And January 6th. And just the farce that January 6th has been, and the calls for arrests and pardons and prosecutions. Of course, Joe Biden pardoned Hunter Biden. We went over that a few weeks ago. No one was certain. I mean, no one with an ounce of sense should have been surprised. And no one should have believed for a second when Joe Biden and his liar-in-chief, Karine Jean-Pierre, went in front of the American people and said, no, Joe Biden has no intention of. I mean, you should have been able to hear the scoffs from a mile away. Are you kidding me? Joe Biden, the most corrupt politician in the history of American politics, is not going to pardon his corrupt son that facilitated the enrichment of the Biden family through pay-for-play schemes and influence peddling. Yes, we're all very shocked. From the New York Post, Joe Biden's last-minute pardons have been positively scandalous. And the one for his son Hunter hasn't even been the worst of them. Biden's pardons are terrible in and of themselves, but taken together, they illustrate a more important point. Pardons are for resolving individual cases one at a time. Pardons aren't for policymaking. Oh, no? First, some of these pardons are bonkers, a little editorializing from the journalist, including Biden's grant of clemency for the corrupt judge at the center of the Kids for Cash case, in which former Pennsylvania judge Michael Conahan took bribes in exchange for wrongly sentencing children to time in for-profit youth prisons. Wrongly sentencing children to time in for-profit youth prisons, padding his own bank account while helping the prisons to pad theirs. Some 4,000 juvenile convictions had to be thrown out after the kickbacks were discovered. And Biden gave clemency to Rita Crundwell, a corrupt local official in Illinois who carried out the largest municipal fraud scheme in U.S. history. Also on the list, Mira Sakdeva, a Mississippi doctor who committed large-scale Medicare fraud, in part by shortchanging cancer patients by giving them diluted drugs. She also reused needles, which seems to have led to an HIV infection in at least one patient. Biden's release of a Chinese national convicted on truly horrifying child pornography charges was part of a separate action, a prison exchange with the tyrants in Beijing. These pardons and commutations are, of course, indefensible, which is why Biden and his team are not attempting to defend them. And why? Why would you bother? Honestly, why would you bother? You're not running for re-election. You could care less what the people think. Even if you are, I mean, look at these congressmen and senators. Even when they are concerned about re-election, and I say concerned in very strong air quotes, make it make sense. See, the Democrat Party is unified. The Republican Party is broken. But be prepared for the mainstream media to lose their absolute minds when Donald Trump is finally in office and starts pardoning these January 6th prisoners that have been held. Oh my goodness, I gotta play. This just came to my mind, and you've probably seen it before. But Tim Pool, he really, and I want to believe that he meant for this to be the case. But it sure made headlines. Let's see, how would you say it? Tim Pool, scorched earth. I can't remember the guy's name. Once I find the guy's name, this guy, this liberal, leftist influencer. I don't think this is going to have the video, but it'll probably have the guy's name. Beasley. Tim Pool likes to have varying opinions on his show, on his variety of shows. And it usually comes out pretty great because he lets them say their piece, and then he loses he loses his mind, as he does in this video, which, worry not, I'm going to remember to share my screen because I'm really focusing more on capturing the things that I need to capture, because it's truly embarrassing when I release a show and we have gaps in the audio because I didn't realize that I wasn't sharing the screen when I needed to be sharing the screen. Now, without further ado, check this out.
You have.
No,
right.
I
So
haven't.
no. Stop. You don't know
are-
anything about these January 6 cases. You don't know why these people are in jail. You don't know that a man is in Brooklyn right now for 3 years without charge or trial. And when Donald Trump says these people have been held for too long, you say, no, Trump is wrong. Keep them locked up. That's fucking fascist.
Body language.
You've been sitting here with no knowledge of the specifics of some of these cases. There is a man in Brooklyn right now. I'm going to say it again. No charges whatsoever brought. He's been in jail for 3 fucking years. For you to sit there and say it is good that he remains locked up is fascism. That is saying the hierarchical system of the courts and the government is just, and the process is all that matters. And I am saying perhaps 3 years is enough, because I actually have moral logic and an understanding of these cases. Hence, my position on January 6th has always been the people who have attacked police must go to prison. But 3 years is a fucking long time for assault on an officer. We have seen people.
Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know what the law says. And this was, of course, Jack Beasley's argument on the show. He doesn't know that 3 years is long enough. And I think it does depend on the offense. It depends on the laws. But I know that holding somebody without charge for 3 years is against the law and is a gross violation of constitutional rights. All right, I'm riding my cough button because still getting over this cold that I've had since Christmas that has infected my entire family. Pretty awesome. It's probably bird flu, which is the latest attempt of the mainstream media to sensationalize some kind of health crisis. Apparently, big cats are getting it in animal sanctuaries. And it's really unfortunate. I don't have articles on the bird flu. I don't care about the bird flu. I don't believe that's the point. The mainstream media and the government has completely destroyed its credibility over the last 10 years. Over the last several years that we've been able to actually verify information for ourselves. And now we're meant to believe that we need to be concerned about bird flu. We're meant to believe that we're meant to be concerned about the incoming administration of Donald Trump. We're meant to be concerned about anything but what we're actually meant to be concerned about, what we should actually genuinely and honestly concerned about. Maybe the most sensational story of the week was the tiff, you could potentially call it, between Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and David Sachs, who is another South African tech entrepreneur, billionaire. Oh, give me a break. This didn't happen last time. Well, I was pulling this article that it let me read on my phone, but it's not letting me read from my workstation here. So be it. David Sachs worked with Elon Musk on Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and PayPal, a few other things. He's been dubbed Donald Trump's AI and crypto czar, alongside Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy with the Department of Government Efficiency. They've been having a really hard time coming to terms with this H-1B visa program. Now, H-1B visas are meant to attract the best and brightest to work in really any industry to benefit the United States. Now, there's been talk and allegedly, according to X, a pretty large number of people, I think in the poll that I saw, weighed out 60% in favor of completely doing away with the H-1B visa program. I don't know that I agree. And I believe that Donald Trump, we'll just read here from this mega thread on the H-1B visa saga. President-elect Donald Trump has expressed support for the H-1B visa program, emphasizing its benefits and his personal experience with it, aligning with Elon Musk's advocacy for skilled immigration. This support was voiced during a time when Musk has been actively defending the H-1B visa amidst intra-party debates. Trump's comments signify a potential shift or clarification of his stance on immigration policy, especially concerning skilled workers. So, why does Donald Trump support the H-1B visa program when 60% of the people in this poll that are interestingly being sort of portrayed as aligned with Steve Bannon, former Trump advisor? What's the divide about? Why does Trump support it when 60% of the people in this poll alleging the broad representation of the American people that put Trump in office? Why is there a difference? Why is there a divide? Why is the media framing it as a shift away from, or turning the corner, or a 180, or whatever you want to call it, on Trump's immigration positions? Well, I think it's greatly because of the abuse of the program. Here's a view of the thread. Here's a statement from Donald Trump. Let's listen to this.
It's very important to say Well, I the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well, I'm a businessman, and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it.
Oh, yeah.
The
So Trump,
H-1B
by the way, Trump cares about workers now, to all of those union tards that are saying that Trump is going to be terrible for unions and for the labor movement. It's total farce. Another attempt by the media to drive a wedge between Trump and any support that he may have had. The reason that so many people are in favor of abolishing the H-1B visa program is because of the rampant abuse. Let's go through this research I just pulled up. And by just pulled up, I mean this morning. From teamblind.com, which I believe is a, whoa, what the hell happened to it? All right, so you're witnessing in real time a memory holing. I'm going to see if I still have it pulled up on my phone. I should. Here it is. Oh my God, you guys, it's gone. It's gone. Can I pull it up from my history? It's gone. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It was literally there maybe 2 hours ago. And you've now, I'm sharing the screen. If you're watching the video, you can see in real time. It says this post does not exist. Because the swamp, the blob, the mainstream establishment globalists benefit tremendously from the scam, from scamming the H-1B visa program. The H-1B visa program is meant to attract the best and brightest. I'm going to try this one more time. Nope, still gone. Well, I have more. I will not be discouraged. I will not be dissuaded. In fact, I'm actually a little bit excited. I'm actually a little bit excited that you could see in real time the control of the narrative by the globalist elites that don't want you to know what's really going on, that want you to think that Trump is somehow under control by Elon Musk. They've created this narrative that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are they're going to be able to drive a wedge between Elon Musk and Donald Trump and control the agenda. They're going to appeal, and it's actually a pretty smart plan. They're going to appeal to the egos of all of these people in charge. Big businessmen, billionaires, big egos, of course. Donald Trump, probably one of the biggest egos on the planet, respectfully. Elon Musk, richest man on the planet. Does he have a reason to have an ego? Does he have a reason to believe that his way is the right way? Vivek Ramaswamy, David Sachs? Well, here you go. Perhaps immune to the influence of Google. From U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE.gov. Back in September 19th, 2019, headline, Indian management consulting firm agrees to $2.5 million global settlement in North Texas for visa fraud, inducing aliens to enter U.S. An Indian management consulting firm based in Chicago agreed in August to a $2.5 million global settlement for visa fraud and inducing aliens to enter and remain in the U.S. This investigation was conducted by members of the Dallas Document and Benefit Fraud Task Force, including U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, Homeland Security Investigations, and the U.S. Department of State's Diplomatic Security Service. This program, let me see. You're just going to have to bear with me because I need to find an articulation of this scam. Because no, that's not the I'm really hoping. Here we go. Another article that I attempted to share. H-1B visa scam from businessstandard.com. Sorry, trying to get this cough under control. Been talking on my own for a while. It's getting worse. In a high-profile case of visa fraud, 3 Indian origin men have attempted to manipulating the H-1B visa system to secure placements for skilled tech workers in the U.S. Kishore Dattapuram, 55 from Santa Clara, California. Anyway, these 3 guys, their actions were exposed through a detailed investigation by Homeland Security Investigations and the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, with an indictment filed in February 2019. What is the H-1B visa program? The H-1B visa program allows companies to employ foreign workers for specialized roles in the United States. To secure an H-1B visa, employers file a Form I-129 petition with USCIS, documenting the job role, salary, and other critical details. Each year, with only... sorry, you guys, this cough. Competition is high. These 2 guys owned and operated Nanosemantics Inc., a staffing firm headquartered in San Jose that provided skilled employees, debatable, to technology companies in the Bay Area. Under its agreements with the companies and the employees it placed, Nanosemantics received a commission for workers placed at client companies. Geary worked closely with Nanosemantics and was also the owner of a separate business, Lex Geary, a legal process outsourcing firm that served as a, quote, remote virtual corporate immigration specialist for companies. So, long story short, foreign companies were flooding the H-1B visa system with applications, and they were taking payments from these aspiring H-1 visa obtainees to basically scam the system. And the American companies, in turn, were exploiting cheaper Indian labor over good-paying jobs for Americans in the tech sector. Now, this segues into a larger discussion that I'm going to attempt, given the condition of my health. Because we're basically, I don't know, I don't want to over-sensationalize, but it's a pretty sensational situation. We have foreign interests that are attempting to hurt our government and our country by exploiting the weaknesses in our system, which I've mentioned before on this podcast. I recently saw this story, if it even still exists, about China's influence over our higher education institutions. Oh, why is it gone? Why is it gone? Let's try another. Good Lord. I think Google's onto me, guys. Let's try. Come on, take me there. Nope. It's gone. How is it gone? Let's try do. Off worked. Now let's turn it back on. This isn't a reason to share and not miss an episode of this show, I don't know what it is. I mean, you're seeing in real time the attempted control of information by the globalist elite. From the article, in April 2022, amidst the continuing uproar of the COVID pandemic, to make it bigger real quick, 4 deans of schools of public health from the USA, China, Switzerland, and Singapore first got on a call with each other to see how they could ramp up cooperation remotely. Barred by lockdowns from the usual academic meetings and conferences, the urge to link up was stronger than ever. Co-founders of the high-powered group were Michelle Williams, then Dean of Harvard School of Public Health, and former World Health Organization Director General Margaret Chan, now Dean of Beijing's brand new Vanke School of Public Health. Quote, at the height of the pandemic, my good friend here, Margaret, and several others amongst us decided that we needed to come together with deans of schools of public health to promote solidarity and to continue to be assertive about what global health diplomacy means for all of us, said Williams at the first face-to-face coalition meeting in May 2024. Quote, we were May 2024. What does that tell you about what we have in store regarding future global health concerns? Quote, we were surprised at the lack of dialogue, the lack of cooperation and collaboration worldwide, said Chan, of that difficult pandemic period. So she was delighted when Williams reached out about conferring virtually. Quote, we felt that change is necessary and we can make a contribution as universities, which represent the creation and translation of knowledge through science to policymaking. I'll sum it up here. Experts. These are the experts that were pushed out by who? China. Other founding members included Antoine Flahalt, director of the Zurich-based Swiss School of Public Health and longtime actor in Geneva, the world's, quote, global health hub, and the deans of public health schools at the University of Cape Town, Mahidol University, Thailand, heads of public health institutes in Huazhong, China, Mexico, Sydney, Chile, and Singapore. The first encounter, organized online by Chan at the Vanke School, was naturally focused on health issues related to the COVID crisis, but with an eye beyond the immediate issues of vaccines, travel restrictions, and lockdowns to the long-term challenges that everyone knew lay ahead. Challenges like the need for countries to come together on the all-important task of building more resilient health systems, better prepared for the next pandemic. Oh, the next pandemic, guys. Quote, working with Dr. Margaret Chan to co-create the coalition was one of the few bright spots during the early part of the pandemic. Williams, who recently stepped down as dean, told Health Policy Watch by email from California, where she is currently on sabbatical, whatever that means. Quote, I was delighted that Margaret and I joined forces and then had other deans join us. I felt it was important that we academic leaders needed to redouble our efforts to break down real and perceived barriers to global health collaboration, cooperation, and diplomacy. All around us in political and public health practice spaces, I observed decision makers looking inward and sometimes missing the important imperatives and values of global public health, Williams said. Quote, vaccine nationalism, unthoughtful border closings, and some other policies ran counter to public health, global health diplomacy, and practice. This was disheartening, especially as pandemic threats from climate change, and other threats like antimicrobial resistance are global threats that require global cooperation. Now, this all sounds wonderful, right? We're going to come at it unified global public health enforcement. What about the Constitution? Oh, it's all starting to come together now, isn't it? What about the Constitution? Well, we got to get rid of the Constitution because of global health. This article is in the show notes. You can't see it because I'm not sharing it. Oops. At least it's not a video. There's more. China infiltrates American colleges and cranks out an entire generation of experts. Experts that have been taught that The American Constitution is inconvenient. The American Constitution is dangerous. So if you knew how the American people, to shift gears just a little bit, if you knew how the American people would feel about the wokeness, aside from pandemic preparedness, which is just another point of infiltration. I mean, look at what happened to our rights and freedoms. And of course, you couldn't have missed the discussions about pandemic preparedness and the World Health Organization taking on all the responsibilities of dictating how countries were going to respond to pandemics and pandemic mitigation measures. You should have been able to see, if you were listening to this show, how the globalist elite was going to take away Western freedoms and has continued to take away Western freedoms. And this is the theme of the show. Our pathetic, feckless leaders are ceding territory to violent people. We don't have to call them Muslims in every circumstance, because they're not Muslims in every circumstance. You see it on social media every day. The violence is being allowed to run rampant. Why? So that we beg to be saved. And what do people that are interviewed about the authoritarianism that exists within the CCP in China? They say, it's worth it. It's worth it not to have these freedoms because we're so safe. They keep us so safe all the time. So how do you make the public beg for authoritarian crackdown measures? You make them unsafe. You make it so that they can't walk the streets in their own cities at night. You make it so they can't ride the subway. You make it so that they can't go out anywhere without fear of catching some newly developed virus that's been released on the population to justify authoritarian crackdowns. And you infiltrate the higher education institutions to create a generation of people that will go along with it. Now, on the subject of wokeness, this is another way that we're being attacked by these compromised higher education institutions. It's just the note that I wrote for myself on this topic. If you knew how the American people would feel about the wokeness that's been poisoning our culture for the last decade, and you'd infiltrated the colleges and universities educating the future business experts tasked with fueling the country's economy, I'm talking about the people that are going to be CEOs, CFOs, sit on the boards of these companies, hire people through HR. You could very effectively damage the American economy by facilitating the implosion of massive American companies through the woke policies that repulse the American people. Look at what happened to Bud Light. Look at what's happened to Disney and Netflix. Look at the economic backlash that is hurting the companies that have been pushing these woke policies. And yay, let's all be happy about it for a second until we can realize that this is hurting the country. And there's no other way to go about it. The damage has been done. And they will continue to try, because when we stop spending money at these massive companies that don't hold traditional American values to be important, yeah, it hurts them. It may hurt China marginally when we all cancel our Amazon subscriptions and don't continue buying Chinese garbage from Amazon. And maybe this is one of the reasons, maybe this is one of the justifiable reasons for corporate media censorship. Because while I believe that we are truly doing the right thing by voting with our wallets and not giving money to these companies that are contributing to the cultural rot of the United States, ultimately it is hurting the economy, which benefits our foreign adversaries. And it doesn't end. How do we fix it? We're governed by a constitution. It's just more evidence to support my theory, I guess, that our enemies have studied our governing documents and have learned how they can hurt us without directly breaking the law. And we have to be vigilant. We have to be prepared. We have to understand the efforts our enemies are going through to hurt the country, hurt our way of life, and conceptualize ways to fight back. We have to get the rot out of our schools, out of our colleges. We have to get the corporations back to providing products and services and not political narratives. And we have to get these lying propagandists off the airwaves. And we're doing it. We're winning. We are winning this battle. I am not trying to end this show on a negative note, because we are being successful, because these companies are losing money, despite all of the promises that were no doubt made to them by these foreign parent companies that don't care about their success. They only care about the destruction of the United States solely. They want to destroy capitalism in America. They want to destroy the American way of life, and not just the American way of life, but the Western way of life. And that's why we hear about no-go zones in Australia and France and the UK and terrorist attacks in Germany. Because these places, including the United States, have been infected with pathetic, weak leaders that can't even be called leaders. They're pawns. They're tools in the toolbox of evil men that want to destroy our way of life in the West. And they're failing. They're losing. Because we have citizen journalists and podcasts and reporters that are working tirelessly to get this message out to you, because we're entering uncharted territory. There is no legal path forward because the legal path has been clouded by our foreign adversaries. So please, step up, get creative, send me your ideas. Follow me on X at earthvox. I'm earthvox on Twitch. I'm earthvox on YouTube. I'm earthvox everywhere, baby. One of the reasons for the name of this podcast. I'm going to keep going. It's been very discouraging going through the events of the last couple of weeks. I'm back to a solo show. And I'm going to keep going. Because damn it, we have to fight to keep our freedom, to keep our country, to keep our way of life. Not just in this country, but in New Zealand, in Australia, in France, in Germany, in the UK, and Spain. And everywhere people want to be free. So share this show, subscribe, leave me a nice rate and review if you wouldn't mind, because I rely on you now more than ever to stay engaged with me, to share the show, to help me grow. Send your emails to therealearthvox at protonmail.com. I'd love to invite you to join the Discord channel. Check out the show notes. Come on the show and talk to me about it. I need friends. I need friends. You're my friends. I just need to hear your voice. This is not the end. Maybe it's only the beginning. I'll talk to you soon.